Welcome to Journey to Justice. I'm Eiko Kosasa, your host. Today is the second half of a two-part interview with Dr. Lynette Cruz, a retired professor of anthropology at Hawaii Pacific University. In part one, Lynette discussed her teaching philosophy and practices. In part two, we will begin by reviewing a 5-minute clip from part one on student field trips. Let's listen in.
Well, there's teaching and there's teaching. You can teach inside a classroom, which is an artificial environment with freaking air conditioning and crappy lights. However, you have a whiteboard and you have access to video, but it's very unreal. Mm-hmm. So is it better than to be teaching on site? You know, I actually ask my students, is it better for you guys if we're teaching here, or is it better if we're teaching out in a place? And everybody said out. Nobody wanted to be in class. So we would do field trips during class. If I had a 3-hour class, for example, we'd meet at the site and we do a tour, and we have people who host us because they're from that place, give us history and information, and students had the ability to retain much better the information that they were getting, but also the quality of their papers started to improve because it stopped being kind of like a head trip. Basically, the experience of it all made stuff real that wasn't real before. They could imagine it, but not as well as actually being there.
So they're integrating, you know, it's part of your thing, they're integrating their experience with their knowledge.
Yes. Yeah.
Then it stays. Yeah.
It does stay, but also it gives you a kind of appreciation for a place. Because it gave me an opportunity to talk about Hawaiian culture and Hawaiian values and what it means when you're on a place or in a site. And for example, one time we built this ahu. You know what an ahu is?
Yeah.
And it was right after the tsunami in Japan. And people came to school feeling really depressed, and a lot of my Japanese students had left. They didn't know what to do. They just went wherever, but they had to deal with that. And the rest of us felt badly for them. And so we went outside in the back of the school. HPU has a wonderful windward campus, you know, it's like right up against the mountain. Went in the back, and we met under the trees. And in the back is all kinds of, it's like a mini forest with all kinds of flowers, trees, fruits, stuff like that. And I said, if we wanted to send our good wishes and our good energy to Japan, to the people of Japan and to the land, because they have suffered a tremendous injury, harm. Could we do it here? And then we talked about the idea of proxy. We talked about John Kaimikawa, who is a kumuhula who also taught at HPU, and his explanation that proxy, you can do things by proxy if you cannot be there, because the intention is the same and the energy is the same. And if we wanted to build something that gathered all our good energy using what's available, could we do that? And everybody said, we could try. Okay, so me, walk around, you guys. You got 5 minutes. You want to find something in nature, it can be anything at all, that you can use as a symbol of your good energy. You're going to send it, get it, gather it. See, the students are walking all over in the bushes, and that's all cool. And then they come back, and then somebody has like a guava, somebody has a leaf or a fern or a twig or a stone, whatever. And then we put it all in there's a tree back there, so we put it all in front of this tree, you know. And then we make the assumption that your good energy went into the selection of this item, and then it's put there as joint energy, big energy. And we stand around in a circle. Okay, let's all hold hands. Who wants to share their thoughts? And we go around the circle, and everybody's like really into it, you know. Yeah. And it's really good. Okay, we're sending our energy. Okay, that's done. We go back into the classroom because it's a break now, right? Yeah. And the first thing that somebody says to me is this young haole guy. And he says, you know, I knew I shouldn't just take anything I wanted, that I should actually ask what is the appropriate thing. And he said, you know, this fern went like this. And I said, really? And he said, yeah, it waved at me. And I said, so what did you do? He said, so I picked it And I put it over there. And when he said that, all the other students started talking about similar kinds of experiences because they wanted to do what was appropriate and all that. Okay, what I'm saying is, if you give students the opportunity to interact with nature without me, right? Just go. You know what the purpose is, our intention. Go do what needs to be done. And in that way, you become attuned. It's not about me.
Yeah.
So you do the thing that you got to do, and you know what? If that works and it works for you, and we don't know if it didn't work,
Yeah.
what's to prevent you from doing that again? So that's the lesson. Go do your thing, and when you leave, take that with you. Your approach is important. It's respectful. Your intent is good. You don't know what wonderful things will happen because of that.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's kind of what the field trips is, right?
Yeah.
The field trips, as you take them on a bus, you get them to the site, you let them go, you instruct them on kind of what's going on, and you tell them, look, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. You guys can tell by looking right. Okay, walk around and figure it out. And then in 10 minutes, I walk around and everybody's like sitting on the ground, pulling weeds, cutting grass. I don't know what they're doing, raking. And I make the assumption that that place told them what to do. Because you know what? I don't have to be your teacher in the field, and I'm not your mom.
Yeah.
You see what tools are available, go do what needs to be done, because your presence here needs to make a difference. So that's kind of what the future program is meant to do.
Because you're teaching them a different way of thinking. Like, what does a place want you? I mean, to me, that's,
Certainly
anti-hegemonic.
Certainly hope so.
Yeah.
Because as soon as they understand that that place can be significant to you regardless of who you are,
Yeah.
regardless of where you come from, if you see merit in the work that you do and value in the place that you're at here in Hawaii, you'll see it when you go home. And yes, do go home. And go home and go visit your place and love your place, wherever it is,
Yeah. Yeah.
It's got to be beneficial globally. So you might say this is kind of like world peace, one person at a time. If your interaction with the land is kind and loving, then basically I think you're being taught how to interact with people. You practice on the land. You're kind to the land. You love it. It thrives. It's happy. It's healthy.
Yeah.
Go do that with people. Make your life and your community better.
To me, it's the thinking behind it. And, before we started doing the interview, you were talking about, the system, how it's making it not, it's basically killing us. And this is teaching them a different way of thinking versus just listening to what it's telling you to do.
It's I guess inherent in this kind of approach is a kind of well-wishing, you kind of build in a kindness by the way that you approach your students. People always ask, so how you get along with your students? And I always tell them I love my students. And I wish them well. Whether or not they learn anything in my class is not relevant to me, but when they leave, I hope that for the short time that they were here, that they felt that they were part of a family, that we behaved as a family and that we cared about them, and then they can go on and learn whatever. But if they felt that way, if they got that, that means that they would want that when they go somewhere else, and maybe they'll make it happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Make it so. So I always tell them, first day of class, what is the purpose of life? And be successful, this, that, I don't care what they say. And I always say, no, that's not true. Purpose of life is really to get high. How you get high now is the thing. Some people think getting high is drugs. Getting high is alcohol or sex or money. But you can get high in this class because if you think and if you feel like this is your family, you're going to want that. And when you go to your next class, you're going to try to create this over there. Because it feels good. It feels like coming home. And people feel like your family. And you do your best. And if people thrive in that environment, and you want it. You want it. So when you go out into the world, make it. Crazy, I know.
No, it's not crazy.
Is it written up in a curriculum? No, of
No.
course not. It's just a kind of
What you're conveying.
philosophy.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
philosophy. Wow.
yeah. So
So now that you're retired, what
I
are
got
you
hired back.
doing? Yeah.
I
know-
retired.
Yeah.
And then I'm not retired. I'm half-time employed at HPU. I'm their Kupunen resident. So what does that mean? Well, I don't know. John Kaimikawa was a Kupunen resident. He was the only one before me. And then when he passed, it was an empty position. But they offered that to me last year for a one-year contract. And I continue with the field trip program, and I developed actually a couple of directions that I'd like to go since I'm teaching exempt. So I have other people's students,
Yeah.
and I don't know them. But then I get to know them on site, on field trips, and I shifted the focus from just getting to know the land to health and wellness, you might say. So then I get to define what health and wellness look like on a field trip. So I could teach them, and we did that last semester, expose them to practitioners who are doing like lomi or la'alapa'o or just massage, and give them some basic skills and see, kind of expose them, like a liberal arts college, expose them to other ways of making a difference. And then if they want to follow up, then they're welcome to do that and become certified as this thing or that thing or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's also like in the area of food, I think, because food safety, food security, food sovereignty, those kinds of issues I'm finding are really important to the students who are like in their 20s, who are actually looking at what they eat, what they don't want to eat, how they can assure for themselves and say the generation coming after them that the food that they eat is safe. This is stuff that comes out of them, not me. So we expanded our field trip program to off-island. Last semester, we went to Maui for 11 days and lived on a farm. That was fabulous because you look at the layers of things that were happening. So on the face of it, we're living on a farm, learning to be sustainable. That's on the face, and then there's like 5 other levels of things that they're learning without understanding what they're learning. It's okay. We'll get to that in the debrief. And then we went back to that same site over Thanksgiving weekend for 4 days. And for them, it was going home. It's family. And everybody's uncle and everybody is auntie, and they have learned to treat and speak to each other with respect. And learned to solve their difficulties. And I think primary thing they learned was that the relationship is everything. That your relationship with the land, your relationship with each other, with the people who host you and care for you is all that's important. And you never jeopardize that. Never, because relationships are hard to come by and you want to keep them. So you learn real quick how to be respectful, how to do what you're told, or whatever you said you were going to do, that you must do it, you need to follow up. And that's so that the person with whom you have that relationship thinks highly of you. I mean, you never want to let them down, right? You said you were going to do it, so you got to do it. Otherwise, that person's going to think you're an idiot. And so, yes, it begins to shift, and it stops being about, like, it's not about me. It is about us, either the two of us or all of us, because we sort of agreed that we're all in this together, so everybody's got to do what they got to do, and it'll come out fine. I wonder who's teaching that. I wonder what that would fall under. But it's kind of, I guess for me, it's about teaching students the art of diplomacy. HPU has a diplomacy and military program. I like the diplomacy part. I don't like the military part. But I don't see why we can't be also teaching them just diplomacy. And I'm not talking about mediation, which is a different thing. I'm not talking about conflict resolution necessarily. I'm talking about how you behave in the presence of other people. Yeah, they kind of follow your lead after a while. Plus, they know if you're giving them the business. People are very discerning, so.
No, and it's important. Today, everything is just hustle and bustle, hurry up. People can be very rude, and you just have to say, okay, that's just, they're just rushing this and this. And so you just,
Make allowances.
yeah, but you forget. Yeah, because I noticed, okay, I've been teaching more full-time since 2005, right? Teaching here and there, but I started to realize the thing I'm trying to do is always talk to them about values, how we want to treat each other, because to me that's what they need to know, So I teach political science, but then it's like showing when we look at different policies, how are they telling us to interact with each other, even, money, minimum wage and all that. It's saying something about human relationship.
Yeah.
And this is what we need to look at. This is what we need to change so that we're kinder to each other. Yeah?
So true. Because of the kind of work we do, and I don't mean teaching, but the rest of the work, we're volunteers, right? We're all volunteers, and we're all, pretty much all of us, everybody I know is working on some social justice issue.
Yeah.
It's unpaid work. But the drive is not money, so it's fine. Because we want to see something happen, something change. And if we want the world to be a better place, and there's some kuleana on us to help that along.
Yeah.
I was trying to explain that to somebody who has access to a lot of funds. And so I said, one of the things I see happening is that people like you. If this was not your job, you wouldn't even be here. It's your job. But you know what? Long after you're gone from that position, I'm still going to be doing this. Because it's not exactly my job. It's a thing that I have a drive to do. I'm driven to do it because fixing things, making things right is going to make my life better. And my kids and my grandkids and yours and his and the next guy down the road.
Yeah.
The benefit is like global. So if you really wanted to help, you'd put the money out for us without us asking. You just do it because you see value in what we do. But what you really are saying to me by your inaction is you want us to ask for it, you want us to jump through the hoops, you want us to fill out this and the other. Because there's a certain amount of power that's attached to that.
Yeah.
And you know what? Keep your money. We've been paying out of pocket for freaking 20 years. We'll continue to do that. And not to be rude, because I think that a lot of our benefactors have been wanting to help, but they have no problem putting us through the paces.
Yeah.
And it is so problematic for me and pono ole.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so here I am grumbling because, we applied for funding and we have been funded, but it's been such a hard thing to do because it's always about justifying that you're worthy.
And then you have to put it in their framework,
Yeah.
which
We're
will
worthy,
not make it.
we're worthy according to your criteria. We
Yeah.
have just become worthy.
Yeah.
And in the process, we hope it doesn't change us because I don't want to be worthy for you. It has nothing to do with
Exactly.
you. So, because I have a couple of friends who are kind of wealthy, and it's the same, and I'm always asking them, you see the need, how come you just don't meet it?
Yeah.
Why don't you? And they don't know what to say. Oh, because we have to be a 501c3 so they can claim us on their tax thing. And I never know what to say to any of that. It's kind of like, go away for me. So it just behooves me to remember this, that if I ever turn into a wealthy person, I should be going around and putting the money where it has to be for that work to continue.
As we're coming to the close of the interview, is there anything that you want to add or talk about that we haven't talked about?
I think the system sucks, the one that we're in. I think people have been trained to demean themselves in order to live, just to live. And I think there's no aloha in that. I'll give you an example. I grew up in a particular way. In my grandparents' house, and people didn't have to ask if they needed help. If we knew, we would offer it. I mean, so my grandparents would be saying, like if we knew that our neighbor, the husband had a heart attack or whatever, my grandparents would be over there and saying, you guys, what do you need? We can do this, we can do that. Just tell us what you need. And it was always so. And so you grow up thinking that everybody's like that, but reality is they're not.
Yeah.
And everybody's sort of They guard their aloha, you might say, and they're not as free with that as they used to be. And I think a lot of that comes from distrust, from lies, from having people say things to you that, to your face, that you know are not true, and you know that they know it's not true, and they say it anyway. And I'm talking about people running for public office and how they lie. And then later on, their actions tell you that, as a matter of fact, you were right and they were lying. And yet that system continues. It just continues. And after a while, you get tired of it all. You just don't want to participate at all. And yet those people continue to make policies that impact on our lives. And after a while, you don't know what to do, because you could run for office, but you know that that will probably corrupt you, as it has so many of our friends who ran for office and then realized that they wanted to stay in office and spent all their time running for office even after they're in, so they can be in for the next one. So yeah, systems-wise, it's not working. Do I have anything that I can put in its place? I think I was always an anarchist type, by the way. And by that I mean, I guess the definition I was thinking about is the not having the need for like government, because before we had government, we actually had a process where decisions were made, and the common good was important. And now we're too big, and so you have government because the common good has become I think subsumed under the good for those guys.
Yeah.
So the way it is now is not working. I don't really have anything to put in its place. Anarchy sounds good because anarchy, as it's shown in film, for example, that's not it. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about what happened when Hurricane Iniki struck. I'm talking about what happens when a big calamity happens, and as a matter of fact, people don't run for their guns. And they're not trying to protect their stores. What they are is they're running next door to see if people need help.
Yeah.
I'm talking about that. And then there's no governing entity. But what there is a value system that is still intact. And people realize that for them to survive, we all need to survive. And so your wellness and well-being is my responsibility. I'm talking about that. And I'm talking about the fact that we have not been tested enough. And given the way the government is going, we might get tested pretty soon. Who knows? Do we need to have a collapse for it to kick in? Maybe. I mean, we hate to see it happening or to come to that, but we might. And then are we up to it? And you know what? I think we are. I don't know how it is in the rest of the U.S. I think they're going to go for their guns.
Yeah.
I think they're going to like protect their home and their house and their food and shoot anybody who comes nearby. But I don't think that's going to happen in Hawaii. Except maybe in some of the more rich Haole enclaves.
Yeah.
They might want to protect their own, but you know what? We don't need their stuff. Everybody else will be sharing whatever they got. And funny, because I had this discussion in our house, right? So my, I don't know what happened, but electricity went down, and there was some time where we were living in Kaneohe and everything went out. And my son says, "You think we should go next door and see if because old couple live next door, see if they're okay?" And I said, "Well, if the electricity doesn't come on and if we don't hear anything, we should go and check." But so that didn't come from me. And I know that thinking, it prevails because some of those cultural values are still intact.
Yeah. And it's just the systems making people not make those choices.
Right.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Politicians, I think, do some really bad and selfish things. And they have so much investment in their own well-being.
Yeah.
I don't know how to hold them accountable, or if I would, even if I could. But you know, in the end, I like to think, you got to live with yourself. You.
Yeah.
And if you feel okay and you feel proud and you can pass that on to your kids, all good. But you know what? Your actions hurt plenty people.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it was very selfish on your part, and somebody needs to tell you that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then that's it. You know, it's just like, you got to hear it. You know, while you're living in your little pipe dream world that says that you're like A-okay. The reality is you're not.
You're right with the politicians. How do you hold them accountable? There is no way, really.
But
The way
you
the
hope that their
system-
kids hold them accountable.
Yeah.
Because every bad decision that's made, every time politicians favor something that is obviously bad, you like to think that that person's family is one day going to say to them, how ashamed I am of you. And then, you know, what goes around comes around.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you may not suffer, but why should you get a free ride? You should, like the rest of us. We're doing, I like to think we're doing self-correcting constantly. You know, so when we talk about what it means to be pono, it's about self-correcting. Hell, I don't even think I can be pono all the time because in my head pops this idea that I should kick your ass, lying piece of shit, right? That, and to me that's okay. How is that helping? Putting out this negative energy, this negative vibe into the world certainly can't be helping. I'm sorry. Take it back, but you can't take it back. I already put it out.
Yeah.
So being self-correcting means that you're mindful and you don't go there. Don't go there. Let it go. Even though that person has hurt so many people, but I can actually think of several people. My doing that somehow makes me more like you than I want to be. So I am not going there. Yeah, and no, I'm not a Christian, and no, I'm not going to pray for you. But I certainly hope that what comes around, goes around, comes around.
Yeah.
And you get some of that to yourself. And then hopefully you'll have learned whatever the lesson is for you. That kind of keeps me free, right? I don't have to be the bad guy.
Yeah.